speak to that. But I do want to just express my gratitude to the supervisors and to all of you for coming out tonight, and I appreciated the supervisor's comment that this is not a one and done. I agree, I feel the same way. In my experience, going back with John and others, one of the best ways to address the issues that we collectively face, not only in a collaborative environment, but also is just to bring kind of education. We deal in this in a day in and day out environment. We're also working the Mobile Home Residency Law, Title 25, Mobile Home Parks Act, all the various laws that are specific to our industry. And we realize that most folks don't spend an amount of time and focus on those types of things as we do. So we look to try to answer as many questions, even if we're not operating your park. I make myself available to the parking lot as long as it's before my son's bedtime. But we try to make ourselves available to answer questions, to dispel rumors, to bring into the light, if there are bad actors, to bring them into the light, to hopefully convince them that's not a good path. And hopefully we can answer some of the pre-prepared questions tonight and make some progress here. So thank you.
Thank you. Tamara, tell us a little about yourself and what you're doing as part of this effort.
Hello, I'm Tamara. Many of you know me in this room, I know, because I have spoken to you individually regarding your concerns. And about 4 years ago, I was taken to a meeting and this information was brought to my attention. As some of you know, I'm a champion for low income and homeless. I saw this as something that the little guy needed to fight, and we needed to protect this housing because there's no place for us to go as an alternative. So I felt like the fight was important and necessary, and I've dedicated the last 4 years to bringing it to everyone's attention I could possibly bring it to. I carry cards in my pocket, and every time I speak to somebody, I say, hello, this is who I am and what I'm doing. I'm happy to work with this group. They're creative thinkers, and it is my hope that we can come up with something solid that will protect these homeowners. I do feel that some solutions may be shy, but if we work together and we really pound out the detail, I'm hoping that we will find a way to dissuade these corporations that act in this way from purchasing in our county and from propagating that business model forward. I appreciate all the effort and time that the panel has put in, that Bill has put in, and that John and Wendy have put in. John has been listening to me for a long time, and I am really grateful to be here this evening. I'm really hoping we can come up with a solution that will protect the residents of this county before we have severe problems.
Thank you, Tamara. Doug, your turn.
My name is Doug Johnson. I'm with the Western Manufactured Housing Communities Association, a real long title. It's WMA. We're a nonprofit trade association that represents the owners and operators of mobile home parks throughout California. Having been founded in 1945, it's one of the oldest, largest, and most respected nonprofit trade associations in the United States. I've been with WMA for going on my 27th year. I have a lot of history. I live in Sacramento, but I have a lot of history in this beautiful county. I was appointed to the first mobile home task force back in 2002 when there were similar crowds talking about issues of affordability and sustainability. And the great thing about this county is that we've always found solutions together. We always were able to come together. That task force met for 6 months. We talked about issues of not only rent, but all kinds of issues. Propane issues, water issues. We talked about everything, and we really came up with some solutions that I think have protected, maintained, and created more affordable housing, something that Supervisor Heidel was talking about earlier. So I'm really excited to be here. I have been really happy to be a part of this panel. There's 2 supervisors, I appreciate their leadership. We've had great Zoom calls. We've had tough discussions. but I think we really can, coming together, work something out so that we can continue this wonderful way of life for so many people in this beautiful county. Thank you.
Thank you, you're absolutely right. We've just been seeing each other on Zoom calls, so this is like 3D live. Next up, Shannon, go ahead.
My name is Shannon Mannering, and I moved to the area in 1985 to learn and work in the business with my uncle and my great-grandparents who started Lake Oaks Mobile Home Community on our family land. And we take great pride in maintaining and establishing a beautiful place for our residents to live, and we, sorry, I just went from 0 to stressed out in 2 minutes. Anyways,
I'm here for you, Shannon.
yeah, I'm fourth generation. My uncle's third generation. The two of us and our spouses and our children currently run the park with our managers, and we see our park as a family lifestyle for our seniors. We care about our residents, and we want to continue to maintain a beautiful place for them to live.
Thank you, Shannon. And the last is Frank Porter. Frank and I have a long history together. I think we started this journey back in June, where Frank was very instrumental in assisting the foundation as we started to formulate Housing Eldorado, which is an organization that's now very focused on housing across the spectrum of El Dorado County. And Frank, you have spent an enormous amount of time on that committee, so thank you.
Well, thank you, Bill, and thanks for the welcome. And I want to, again, echo everyone else's gratitude for the Board of Supervisors, for Wendy and John, both co-hosting this and helping to convene this group. My personal background on this is that I started working as a teacher in the school district back in 1975 at the Buckeye School District, and I've had a long history of being an educator and a school principal and now a retired superintendent. And during my time as a school superintendent and principal, I did lots of time visiting my students and their families, and the critical role that mobile home parks play, not only for seniors who want to retire in dignity, but also they serve as a safety net for people who are on fixed limited incomes, and they provide a really solid, affordable housing option for a lot of families. And as a principal and a school superintendent, I worked on many efforts to help families who were struggling living in trailer parks and mobile home parks, excuse me. And I, over the years...
Don't say that, don't use that phrase.
They're blanching over here.
And we're off and running.
Blanching on that, okay. But the point here is that affordable housing is a critical issue for our county, and I've been deeply interested in the issue since my retirement, and it's become, as Bill said, kind of my project. And I've pretty much been doing this more or less full-time because I feel that it's a critical issue for our county, for our students. We have 850 students in El Dorado County who are underhoused or unhoused or homeless, essentially. We have a 3,070 shortage of affordable housing units in our county, and it's getting worse. The number of, and you're going to hear numbers, I think, later from CJ, but you're going to also understand that this shortage is critical to our businesses. I've attended many business forums in our county, and business leaders, some of them are probably sitting in this audience, will tell you that the lack of affordable housing is stifling the economic growth of our county. The expansion of businesses in our county is limited by the fact that we can't afford to house the people that work here. And many of those jobs that fall in the service sector, you are basically low income and struggling to find adequate housing. So it is a big problem for us that as a county we need to address. So I welcome the fact that we have a whole team of people up here, and I will echo what's been said before. We've really been thinking out of the box a little about how to solve these problems and come up with good solutions that will work for our county. As Shannon, I'll up you one, Shannon, I'm fifth generation Californian. My grandfather had a mine in the, great-great-grandfather had a mine Placerville that he lost at a gambling deal. So I don't gamble anymore. I wish my great-grandfather had.
Well, a good lesson for your family.
Thank you all for being here tonight.
So to kick this off, we're gonna start the conversation around trends that seem to be currently happening within the mobile park community. So who would like to take a first shot at that and discussing some of the trends? I think we know that there's a 2020 civil code that's come out. What other things are occurring? So what other movement do we see within government, within community? Tamara, you want to take a?
Well, can you rephrase, can you repeat the question?
Sure. So trends in mobile home park ownership in California. What do you see as currently occurring?
Well, I don't think it's systemic, and it's not everywhere. But there is a business model that's been put forth by a man named Frank Rolfe. It is a business model that sees rapidly raising rents, buying a park, taking away the amenities, and raising the rents rapidly. He is called the residents captive. He has said things to the effect of they have nowhere to go and that's your advantage. Those are the people we're focused on. We're not focused on your average mobile home park owner who does business properly. What we're concerned about is these companies that come in and raise the rents very rapidly. But what's worse is not the rents that they're doing with the residents that are already in place. What is the scary part is they raise the rent to market rate for new people coming in. And this causes a huge problem with the equity for the homeowner that is already in place. We have had many circumstances in several parks in the county where residents have come to me and said, I've had 3 buyers come for my home and they couldn't qualify because they needed a $2,700 a month income to qualify to be a resident in a mobile home park.
Is that due to the space rental?
Yes, the space rent was raised to $900 and therefore they're looking for 3 times the amount of income to move into the park. Which forces the current owner to lower the price to make the buyer more attracted to the package. And I've heard about this over and over. In fact, I was speaking at a park recently and there was somebody coming in to buy and happened to hear about the meeting. And she came to the meeting and decided not to buy in that park because of it. It's a problem for the people that are in. They cannot sell the home. Sometimes they can, but the problem being is that they don't have the equity that they had in their home when they started. Prior to that new park owner purchasing that park, their equity was solid. When the $900 becomes the point, then unfortunately the equity starts to go backwards. An appraiser's rule of thumb is that for every $100 space rent is increased, they lose $10,000 in equity.
So I'm gonna first. I've had the tech whisper in my ear. If you could all pull your mics a little closer to you, and so you all reach for them at the same time. That's great. In unison. So Andy, you want to go ahead and
Sure.
let us know what is occurring on your side when you are hearing that these occurrences are happening, and about the conversation on equity.
Yeah, absolutely. We all share the same concerns about the folks, Rolfe and Reynolds, that Tammy's mentioned. I think they run a company called Mobile Home University. They're out of Colorado or Missouri or somewhere in the center of the country. I'm pleased to say that they do not own or operate anything in El Dorado County, and frankly, I don't believe they own or operate anything in the state of California. So, are they out there and do they exist? Yes. I think I can speak on behalf of everyone on this panel that they're simply not welcome in El Dorado County. believe they're coming. They operate in states that do not have that yellow bound book called the Mobile Home Residency Law that you took a nap on this afternoon.
I didn't add that part, you did, so.
Yeah, no, in all seriousness, though, the Mobile Home Residency Law is the most comprehensive tenant protecting, homeowner protecting law in the country. We deal with owners that have Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac loans on their parks, and these federally subsidized loan programs will give discounts on the loans to own and operate a park if you put in tenant protections. And we look at these tenant protections and we think, well, no problem, we're already doing all these things by law. But what it tells you is the rest of the country's not doing those things. They don't have to legally. We do here. So I think that's one of the many reasons that you don't see those mobile home university folks coming to this state, and certainly not to El Dorado County. I did, and I don't want to steal any of CJ's thunder here, but I had done some of the similar research in the county, and we found very similar data through the all publicly available information, which everyone here can access the same information. But there's 56 mobile home parks by legal definition in the county, and that's any mobile home park that is permitted by the state. HCD is the permitting authority for all mobile home parks, and a mobile home park is legally defined as anything that with 4 mobile homes or more on a single parcel. So if you've got 2 or 3 on a single parcel, it's not technically legal mobile home park. So of the 56 parks in the county, ballpark about 3,000 spaces. So that's every mobile home park that's permitted in this county. I was pleasantly surprised to see out of all 56 parks, all but 3 are owned and operated by a California-based organization, many of which are very, very local, including ours. And the 3 that aren't, 2 of which are right over the hill in northern Nevada, Carson City or something like that, I think, and then one was a New York-based company running a resort in Lotus. So the notion that big out-of-state LLCs and operators coming into the county is not supported by the actual data. That's not to say it's not a concern. I understand that it is. And frankly, I think venues like this, groups like this that can talk and educate and answer questions will prevent the bad actors from coming in. And you've got a fantastic set of state laws, both in Title 25 and Mobile Home Residency Law that keep us all on our toes.
Just so I'm going to ask John, does the 2020 mobile home civil codes, does it address this issue?
If I remember right, there is a new code that addresses rent stabilization. Until this year, if you tried to get rent stabilization in a park where the people had leases, let me turn it around. If you've got a lease, you don't qualify if space rent stabilization ordinance is ever passed in your community. And so that's a bonus. Now they've taken away that exemption so that, and I forget when it took effect.
January 1.
Right, first of the year, in fact. So now you can be party to a lease in your park. I think there's a limit on the date, but it doesn't disqualify you from taking advantage of rent stabilization if it comes to your park. The problem with, I travel around the state, my part of the state, the 19 counties, and I usually ask, one of my first questions, what's your biggest problem in this park? And I'm expecting to say something about the park manager, but their biggest problem invariably is the increase in rent every year is way above what they get in cost of living allowance. So I did some study on that, and I found that the average COLA since 2017 has been 1.3. If you take them all and add them together, it comes out to 1.3. I did a quick study of the few parks, I think it was only 3 that I got information on for their rent since 2017, their increases. It averaged somewhere like 4.5. Now, if you can take the 1.3 COLA increase versus the 4.5, The numbers don't sound that great, but you need to consider that COLA is about 12 ingredients that the federal government bases their increases on. Things like groceries that you have to buy. Medical is around 8 or 9%. They allow for that 100% of the COLA. And then you've got transportation and recreation. For shelter, you have 40%. Now, in a mobile home park, you only are renting the space. And so the shelter covers the mortgage on the house, if you have one, covers your repairs, your utilities, your insurance, everything it costs. So I approximate the cost of the land to be around 25% based on the property tax on the price of a home. So if you took 25% of the shelter, 40% for shelter, you get about 10% of your COLA that the federal government has in mind for you to spend out of your increase. That makes a big difference. And what happens over time is obvious. People can't afford the rent anymore. Some people get priced out to where they're homeless. Now, even the ones that don't get priced out of being homeless feel that those rents are just, the rent increase could be lower. And one last issue, we find that the mom and pop parks, the ones that have been fourth and fifth and even second and third generation family, those increases are not so noticeable. They're not as great. And here's why. A new company comes in and buys a park from a mom and pop. All of a sudden, they're faced with the consequences of Prop 13 from back in, 1978 or whenever that was. And now they've got a new, much higher tax base. If they didn't pay cash for it, which they probably didn't, they're paying now on and so out of necessity, they have to raise the rent. Well, they knew that going in because they have to do their due diligence. And so they look for market level. And they've got more money to make. Plus, most of them have investors. So the investor has to get something for their money, 10, 15, 20%, who knows? And so they've got these extra layers of money on top. The answer to that is that the county could help maybe encourage more of the mom and pop parks when they come for sale, could help the park residents to buy their own park. Now, the rent's going to go up, but not as greatly because they don't have the profit motive. The state has given incentives. The tax base doesn't go up as high as it would when it's sold to an outsider. And there are some other benefits. So the goal here would be to promote resident ownership of these parks when they come up for sale. And that's just one piece of the issue.
On the rent increases, I heard you say 4.3%, was that correct?
That was an average for the 3 parks I looked at.
And over what course of time?
From 2017 until the most recent cost of living increase. So we're looking at the rents that people paid in 2017 as opposed to what they're paying now and what the increases were. To get that 4.5 average, you had some that were much higher, and you had one that was lower. That, I think, was a mom and pop park. But that's the average. Some of them averaged quite a bit. Over that period of time, they had an increase of over $100 a month.
Yeah.
Over the 4 or 5 years.
Bill, can I address?
Yeah, go ahead.
On the trends topic, I saw a staff report from 20 years ago, almost to the month, with the same, very, very same topic had come up here in El Dorado County before many of our time locally. And the staff report at the time reported on average mobile home park space rent in the county at, I believe it was $324. It was 20 years ago. Did the math. I was a terrible economics major, but I was an economics major. That is an average 3% annualized rent increase over 20 years. The staff report was following a meeting not dissimilar to this one, which came about due to similar understandable fears about out of control free market rent
And
increases.
by the way, Andy, can I jump in real quick? This is actually the staff report that's 21 years old with the information he's talking about. I think I'm one of the few people that kept a file because I was there at that meeting, and this is the actually the report. So if anybody wants to look at it, happy to share it with you.
Thanks, Doug.
Now, we would all look at him and think he wasn't born by then.
I was gonna say, Doug, yeah, Doug, you're really old.
Well, I was trying to be funny, he's just being mean. Point being is I'm not making light of this because it is a sincere and understandable concern that all have in this room. What I'm saying is, folks, just like every one of us sat here 21 years, I thought it was 21 years ago, almost to the day, with the same fears and concerns, and it simply didn't manifest over 20 years. Again, I'm not here to say that it can't happen. I understand that, I'm a realist, but it didn't happen. And everyone, and we're in the same environment. So we're on the trends topic. I thought it was a good opportunity to bring up what has happened over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Bill, can I add something real
Yeah,
quick?
go ahead. And then I'm gonna come back to Tamara.
Okay. I like to put a face on what we're talking about because I think it's easy to get wrapped up in corporations and LLCs and all these numbers. I see a park owner out here that I met 20 years ago, and it's Theo Parasek right there. His parents built Westwood Mobile Home Park 50 years ago. He helped build it when he was a kid. And it's a beautiful park, and I asked him just a month or so ago, what are rents doing there? What's going on in your park? And, he runs it now, he manages it. His rent increase for 2021 was between 1.8% and 2.3%. The lowest rent in the park is $494. $494. That is an extraordinarily low rent level. Now, for some, that may be high, and I understand that. And we want to help folks who are struggling, who would consider a $495 rent high. I think we can work together to help those people. But you have to think of the Parasek family and how hard they worked to build that park and how fair they have been to their residents and what good people they are. That is a fair rent increase if you ask me. And so I think as we go through this discussion, there's another one that comes to mind really quickly is a park, Tahoe Verde in South Lake Tahoe that was purchased a few years ago by a park owner, an LLC, but a family-owned company in Novato, here up in Northern California. And they put in millions of dollars in improvements in that park. They added about 34 spaces. So talk about Supervisor Heidel expanding affordable housing in the county. That park owner did that and still kept rents low. So you've got a lot of really great park owners in this county, and they're doing the right thing. And if there are some that might be having some difficulty, I think we can find a way to reach out to those folks and help them.
Thanks, Doug. Tamara.
I was going to say, to be specific, I didn't mean that Frank Rolfe owned any parks in El Dorado County. I was speaking to the business model that he teaches in his university. And I'm talking about the parks that are the bad ones, not folks like these. These are not the people I'm addressing. I'm addressing the people that walked in the door and in 6 months took a rent from $675 to $900. Now granted, the folks that were in their homes did not get the $900 increase. But again, we go back to the factor of what falls out when a park owner owns a home and is paying $675 and a resident, and a park owner comes in and raises anybody who walks into the park to $900 in less than 6 months. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about your responsible park owners. And what I'm concerned about is protecting our county from people that do that. And they are here, and they have done that, and they will continue to do that if we do not discourage that kind of behavior in our county. So we need to send a clear message that that's unacceptable business practice.